And here we are in the second hour of All Things Employment on OneTalkNetwork.com. I am Aaron Boyce.
I'm Robin Rose-Haymer.
And I'm Dr. David Ennis.
Yes, you are. And before we talk with our guest this segment, and I'm just totally thrilled that he's here. I'm a fan, a true fan of everything that the program does, and that means I'm a true fan of you. So I can't wait to hear what you have for us. You know. Let's do a little recap of what we spoke about in the first hour.
Wonderful. Dr. Ennis, would you like to give us our first quadrant full of information?
Oh, sure. We began with a fantastic quote, "The unexamined life is not worth living." And then we proceeded to examine mental health in the workplace. And Aaron, our great host here, gave us some signs of a healthy workplace, some of which included a productive atmosphere, a livable wage, health, wellness, and we talked about work-life balance, and finally fitness. And fitness, we talked about meaning physical fitness, but as well you're fit within the organization. Our guest gave us some really great insights on having a perspective about where work lies in your life and making sure that there are not too many expectations that are placed on your work experience.
Absolutely.
And our guest was
Tamia Dillard. We're really happy to have her, and we're excited to have her back. And in our second quadrant, or our second half hour, we talked about ProVac, and that was a tutorial that included power, responsibility, opportunity, value, attitude, competence, and knowledge. And there is a second set of letters that goes along with that, but you'll have to go to our Facebook page or to the YouTube video to check that out.
It will be there.
Awesome. And we talked about who's hiring. We got an amazing job tip for an entry-level position. And we have our Think About It, which are resources for a job search. And the answer to that's coming up in our final half hour. And what we've got for you this half hour is the Tuskegee Flyers and Karim Watson. Karim, I'm so glad you were able to accept our invitation and come out today.
It's very good to be here. Thank you for having me.
Okay, so I guess the first thing that comes to mind is, number one, you seem so young, and number two,
well, thank you.
And number two, you seem so African American.
You noticed.
I noticed.
I was trying to slip that.
The reason why that comes to mind is that when we're talking about flying, well, all you gotta do is fly Southwest or any other airline, and you don't see a whole lot of African American pilots out there.
You do not.
So
no,
I'm thinking that there is a need for some programs or something to kind of maybe beef up more people of color, and that's what the Tuskegee Flyers. That's one of the things that you're about. Will I be correct about that?
Absolutely. There's like the old adage where you just find the need and then it'll flourish kind of thing. And with this, it's just by virtue of my own experiences that I found out that this need was there. I mean, obviously the heritage that I have, my background, I understand that, but I've lived it. So once you live it and you see it, you understand why there's a need for a program like this.
So Karim, tell us a little bit about your background. Let's hear about your history.
My grandfather was a Tuskegee Airman. I grew up right here in Sacramento, South Sacramento. I grew up on Mack Road, not a very good neighborhood. We didn't have a lot in the way of resources when I was growing up. Some might say I grew up in the ghetto.
Okay.
But basically had a lot of aspirations and things that were a byproduct of the exposure that I had early on.
So your grandfather was able to influence your desires?
Yes.
Excellent. And how is it that you came to be a flyer?
Well, before we do that, can I please, for those of us who don't understand what Tuskegee Airmen program is all about, can you share some history for us, please?
Sure. The Tuskegee Airmen were basically before they were glorified as being a group of heroes, they were merely just an experiment. It was a group of people that were brought in under Benjamin O. Davis, who was one of the first high-ranking military officers in our of color in our country's history. From there, they went on to debunk the myth that blacks were inferior and lacked the courage to fly and be effective aviators in the military. They went on to achieve more than any other, basically anyone ever expected. During World War II, we were losing bombers over Europe and other areas over there, and at a very alarming rate. But when the Tuskegee Airmen stepped in, they performed above and beyond the call of duty. They never lost one.
Wow.
So they never lost a bomber to enemy fire. So that obviously is a far stretch from being unable to fly at all.
Definitely
So,
debunks the myth.
yes, yes. So that's a little bit of the background. There's a whole lot of there's a lot to the Tuskegee Airmen, and there's a lot of history that people probably don't know about. But a large group of them did settle here in Sacramento, actually. So there's a group here that my grandfather belonged to for many years, and I've been a part of, called the Spanky Roberts chapter. And Spanky Roberts was actually the first cadet in the program. Period. So it's a pretty amazing chapter that we have.
That is. It's like the original chapter.
Yes. Yes.
Fantastic. It's good to have that here in Sacramento. It's good to know that exists.
Yeah, it is. And our kids have had a chance to experience some living history too. They've met, some real Tuskegee Airmen. They've met Edith Roberts, who's still alive. She's 95 years old, and she lives right here in Sacramento.
So the program has multi-facets, and one of which is an opportunity to introduce youth to history and living history. So for that, I personally say thank you.
Absolutely.
As an educator, it's very important to know where you came from in order to figure out where you're going. So that part of the program, that aspect is invaluable. And so then, moving along fast-forwarding a little bit in your history, so you had this amazing grandfather, this wonderful resource who you're willing to share with all of us. But then you decided, I think I'm going to do this. I think I'm going to... What came next?
Well, like a lot of kids, you fall in love with aviation at a young age. I think a lot of people, I should say, a lot of pilots. And so I did what most kids do when they fall in love with aviation. I went to air shows. I drew airplanes. I did anything and everything possible, collected and built models, all those kinds of activities. However, the one thing that I found that was difficult as I grew older is that you have to then go into what you guys talk about, which is a competitive market, job market in aviation. And why my organization, the Tuskegee Flyers, exists is because there's kids that don't get exposed, like myself, to aviation in the way that we're exposing them early on enough in life. And that's key, because a kid can, want to be a pilot all day, but if they don't have the resources and the parents, and it's not the parents' fault, but if the resources are not there to get that kid exposed and flying early on, they may find themselves at a disadvantage later on when they're trying to go up against other folks who've been exposed to it early on in life. So that was really the initial mission of this organization, but we have in 2 months grown to a whole nother level.
And that is such a huge fast forward, because while I'm incredibly interested in where the mission has grown to, let's take a pause for this moment and talk about where you started, which is giving youth who may not have had the opportunity to expose to careers in aviation the opportunity to see the nuts and bolts. So tell us a little bit about the nuts and bolts. What kind of things do you guys do at the Tuskegee Flyers meetings?
Well, because of my background, I'm very passionate about getting a kid in the airplane as soon as possible. So the first thing I do is I try to fly them. And I have to commend the community, because a lot of people of different, minority groups often have these fears of doing things such as flying, as a matter of fact. So the parents coming out and allowing their 8-year-old son or daughter to get in an airplane, and some of the parents have never been in an airplane before, I mean, that's pretty amazing. Some of the kids have never been in airplanes before. It's their first time flying. So I've taken 8-year-olds like that and gotten them to a point where they're taxiing the airplane, they're flying the airplane, and that is something that, again, that I'm passionate about, because I believe the exposure is huge. That is a big part of it. They see someone like me who's doing something other than rapping, playing basketball, football. I mean, let's just be honest. Like you said, you get on a Southwest jet and you look up there and you don't usually see someone who looks like me sitting in a captain's chair. So it's reprogramming their mind to an extent so that they can now open up their mind to certain, and once we open up their mind, they start looking at other things too. So
well, absolutely. And you bring another good point. Not only besides those non-traditional careers, but frequently we see people of color working on planes or loading planes, but we don't frequently see them flying planes. And so you've offered a unique perspective, let's say a bird's eye view,
absolutely,
into the field of aviation.
And we're talking with Karim Watson with the Tuskegee Flyers. And one thing that I liked, Karim, is that you told me a great story just during our break about an 8-year-old who was in school, correct? And I wonder if you could share that story with the audience.
Oh, yes. I'm sorry. I have so many. You know what? Our organization has.
All I know is one story.
We have a lot of 8-year-olds.
Okay.
The individual you're speaking of, yes, Bishop, his mom, and they're just so proud of everything that he's done. But he's come on board, and again, he's one of those kids, he's one of those individuals who's never flown an airplane before. Or he hadn't even been in an airplane at that point. So I took him up for his first flight. And I think there's good and bad to that. The good thing is he's not really afraid because he doesn't know to be afraid. So that's a good thing about dealing with a child. But let me get back on the point here with the story. This guy, he gets on the airplane, and you know how you get on an airplane, you're boarding the aircraft, you look to your left, and you see the cockpit, you see, the flight attendant, you see the pilots in there doing stuff. And like I was saying to you earlier, I think people are apprehensive to even look that way. Oh my goodness, that doesn't pertain to me. Especially since September 11th. So I think people just kind of, okay, let me go this way. Bishop, after he had gone up, he enters the aircraft with a certain level of confidence, and I think his mom did as well. So when he's getting on, an 8-year-old kid gets on an airplane like usual. They, reach out and say, "Hey, how you doing?" And maybe one day you too can be flying an air. And his mom just interjected and said, "I'm sorry, ma'am, but he's already flying. He's a part of a flying program in Sacramento, California called Tuskegee Flyers, and he's already flown an airplane. He's 8 years old." And
I love that story. We got a kick out of it. It was a very prideful moment for us.
Well, and all this again, let's reiterate, in 2 months, this organization has formally existed. So I've got to say, you hit the ground, I want to say running, but you pretty much took off and flew, right?
Yeah, no pun intended, right? No, but it wasn't intended to go that way. I feel like the need is so great. This is not just me. I'm merely kind of the face behind it right now, but this is something that I feel was going to happen because there's a need for it. And it's obvious when you see the community rallying behind it the way that they are. So I'm just simply riding that wave with them, and I'm just happy to be involved with it. So, but it is taking off.
What are the age ranges? I know you mentioned 8-year-olds. What are the age ranges? What's the age range?
Well, we started with the 8-year-old as the 8 and up, 8 to 12 being the target age for the junior cadet, right? And the board and I decided that we were going to open up the program all the way up to, we've got a gentleman I brought in who's 23 now. He came in from Sac State Air Force ROTC. Because of the demands that we foresee in the aviation industry in the years to come. So I feel that opening up the program to the older kids is great because it gives them an opportunity to not only learn how to fly, but there's a huge component of this program that's designed to mentor and present the youth an opportunity for leadership development.
So I think I qualified as an older kid. Would you agree with that synopsis?
I mean, I think we could work with it,
There you go.
That's very kind of you, Karim. Incredibly generous.
Wow, blue yonder.
By kid, are you referring to a baby goat or?
Oh, really?
Wow.
Did you really say that?
I think she called you.
I'm trying to figure out how it is we could qualify you as a child. I can't. I'm still trying to wrap my head around that. But I want to move on to the next point that Karim was making about the program, and that's the leadership component. Do you want to talk about that?
Absolutely. That has drawn a large interest. I mean, the Air Force and the Army and the Navy, the ROTC programs are very thrilled about what we're doing because we're offering the kids structure. And recognition was always a big deal. I was in the Air Force myself, so recognition is huge in the military. I thought, why not recognize these kids? A lot of these kids need to have a sense of belonging. So giving them a uniform for one, which I didn't realize they were going to fall in love with, is huge. They love it. I'm thinking, all about swag these days. So I'm like, I'm kind of, I'm not old, but I'm getting up there, and I'm like, I don't think they would think it's as cool as I would have thought it would have been. I thought it was cool when I was a kid. At any rate, they are thrilled. I promoted one junior cadet to captain recently. She's just as thrilled as could be, and it was on Good Day Sacramento the other day when we were on there, and they caught it. And so it was pretty amazing. But the structure and the leadership component are huge in the program. We're working on marching. We're drilling. They're learning customs and courtesies of the military. They're learning to use words such as sir and ma'am, which they probably never use, and to address one another as such as well. So if somebody moves up in the program, then that's their superior officer, so to speak. So it's a very interesting component because the kids, they absolutely embrace it, and the parents do as well. It's almost like soccer. You watch parents when their kids are out there playing soccer, and they get just as competitive.
You mentioned that you were surprised that they liked the uniforms so much, and that does not surprise me because I even wrote that down. A uniform is a sense of belonging.
Yes.
It says, I am part of that group.
Yeah.
That shows, they can take pictures with that.
We've got plenty.
I want you guys to wear that uniform when you march on Martin Luther King Day. Okay?
Okay.
Which will be, I don't know the date exactly, but next year, okay, in January, Martin Luther King Day. Mm-hmm. I've been marching there for over 10 years, right? I would love to have the Tuskegee Flyers out there in their uniforms.
You can count on that.
Fantastic. Yeah. Now, on a painful note, and I'm hoping that the answer isn't painful. Okay, so you have these kids. They're 8, they're 9, they're 10, they're 12, right? And they're like, wow, I got my uniform. I've been in a plane. But where are the resources after? So where do they go after so that they can find the employment that they need? Is this some kind of flyer college? Is it the Air Force, or is it something other than the Air Force? Where can they go to continue this education?
Well, the vision is here, right here with Tuskegee Flyers. But quite honestly, we've been up and running for 2 months now. So we've got some work to do in that regard, but we're offering them the network that we also have as well. So, for example, we are partnered with the Tuskegee Airmen of America, the Spanky Roberts chapter here locally. They're working with us. We're going to be posting colors at their gala event this 8th of November. But they provide scholarships. So these kids are going to be exposed to different programs within our program that will give them the funding and the things that they need to get through the program. Air Force ROTC has expressed a huge interest in our kids as well, the Army, so on and so forth. So these guys will get the funding as they move up. There's also not just flying that we're pushing. We're putting them in the other ultimate goal that we could see in terms of a career for some of these kids is remote piloting now. So that's another huge one. Remote piloting is the wave of the future. Drones.
Yeah.
So billions of dollars are being flushed into that program right now with the Department of Defense. Boeing, Lockheed Martin, a lot of these different organizations, these companies would love to get our kids. So that is something that we're going to be prepping our kids for. And the actual preparation and the money that goes into prepping a candidate for those kinds of programs is not as steep as one might think, actually. So as we expand air traffic control, CTI schools, I'm an air traffic controller. I've done aerospace maintenance as well. So all these different areas they will get exposed to. This Sunday we're going to an air traffic control tower. They're going to get to tour it. So kids are going to be exposed to all these different areas, and then they can through our program make a decision on their career path. But again, to answer your question about where the money is going to come from, it's going to come from the community, and it's also going to come from these big corporations and the government.
I'm assuming that the remote piloting is something that is right up the alley of kids these days. I mean, they're naturally skilled in that space. And I have one question for you. What is the... you mentioned that you're giving kids structure. You're allowing them to see people that look like you in this particular situation. What is the typical home environment of the kids that are in your program?
Yeah, the homes it varies. Some of the children that are coming on board are, they have moms who are doing it by themselves. And it would seem that the moms are, and it's great for them because they get a male reinforcement through the program. They may have, myself or any one of the other individuals that are involved with the program that they can look up to as a role model, and so they get that mentorship through that. And I think that for the single mom, that's got to be attractive to them. Then you have some of the youth are coming from homes that they got both parents, they're working, but as you and I both know, here in the state of California, it's very expensive. So when you talk about underprivileged and underserved communities, even within them, there are people that have a little bit more money, but they could never afford to put their child into a program like this. They're barely making ends meet. So we have some families like that as well. That is our target audience. We're not turning away anyone who's not a minority either. So just so that's made clear, this is an effort for unity, because this has to be a two-pronged approach. It has to be creating awareness within the minority groups, but also making the other side, the aviation community, more apt to want to recruit within those minority groups as well. So it's a tough task because we're having to act as a liaison between the two. But I will say that the community and the children and the parents, they're doing their part. They want this, which makes it a little easier.
So Karim, you may have answered this question. I'm not sure. Robert made me drop my pen, and I was picking up. I may have missed the answer. Okay.
Sure.
But how much are you active in the schools and youth programs in terms of recruiting into your program? And are you working with UCAN? What's your name? UCAN. Wow, really. Help me out here. UCAN.
Oh, the United College Action Network?
Right, that's his name. Okay, we'll get... In fact, he will be a guest on the show. Anyway, are you working with these type of agencies and getting into the schools?
Yeah, I mean, for 2 months in existence, yes, we've had we've had a positive response from the schools as well. Sac State, ROTC, like I said, they've welcomed us in. We're working on some of the junior high schools and elementary schools as well. What has been interesting is kids are coming over from other programs, and they're finding that they can do both. So that makes our recruiting efforts easier. But the schools that we're in right now are primarily, we're focused in the South Sacramento area. So doesn't mean that we're not looking for candidates on the other side of town either. There's other areas, and we're taking people from all over. It just so happens that I keep getting a bunch over there. So perhaps that's where the greatest need is for now. But we've got kids coming from all over.
And through the wonders of smartphones and Google, the name is
Dr. Alan Rowe.
Alan Rowe, yes, Alan Rowe. So if you don't know him, I recommend that you do. He's a phenomenal person. He brings in the historical black colleges to town all of the time.
I'm familiar with him.
It's an annual event, yeah. So I just want to put out a public service announcement for all the young ladies out there, all right, who's going to see this tall, good-looking young man. Albeit he's in a Lakers hat, and that might take off some other value, I'm sure. He got a job.
And his girlfriend is very fond of the fact that he has a job.
Got it. All right, so I was going to put it out there, man. Okay?
Yeah,
You're trying to hook a brother up, I see.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and decode that and let everybody know that that's not an option.
Sorry, ladies, I tried, right? I tried. So, Okay.
But employment opportunities are still available for you. If you'd like to volunteer with the Tuskegee Flyers,
Most definitely.
I'm quite confident that Karim is looking for people of all descriptions to participate.
Definitely. We welcome everyone.
And then can we get some contact information only for the Tuskegee Flyers, though, okay?
Oh, okay, yeah, right.
Somebody's got to get in trouble.
Yeah, right. You guys. Well, Tuskegee Flyers, we're at TuskegeeFlyers.org. It's TUSKEGEE Flyers.org. We can also be found on Facebook, Tuskegee Flyers Foundation. That's our page. And my number, I'm the founder. You can reach me, 916-512-9247. And that's what we have right
And
now.
for the slow of finger, can you say that number again, please?
Slow it down. 916-512-9247.
And you'll be able to find that information on our Facebook page as well. You're listening to All Things Employment on OneTalkNetwork.com. And you'll be able to see us on our YouTube feed at All Things Employment, no spaces.
Yes. And as I knew, I'm totally thrilled that you're here. I would love for you to come back and talk about some of the successes as you go on through this program. I would absolutely recommend, if you haven't done that already, is do a video of the program and keep doing it with some other people as they grow up into the program. If nothing else, it's going to tell a great story and make a great award-winning documentary.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you for coming out.
Thank you for having me.
One more point of clarification, that invitation that Aaron gave you for the Martin Luther King Jr. March here in Sacramento was on the 19th of January. So let's forecast that a little bit out, and maybe we'll have you come out maybe the week before.
Okay, sounds good.
Fantastic.
Thank you for having me.
What do we got coming up next, Aaron?
Coming up next, we have the answers to Think About It. And the question was, besides the classifieds, where else can you find pertinent resources for getting a job?
Excellent. And before we close out this half hour, we have one more job opportunity for the job seeker. And Aaron, are you going to field that job opportunity, or would you like me to field that job opportunity?
Well, since you're looking at your phone, I think you have one that is going to be fabulous.
Well, I think that being able to be hired and go to work in the same week is fabulous. So I will take this one. We've got Adecco, who's hiring for seasonal positions at Blue Diamond Growers. In order to qualify for those positions, you need to apply at www.adecousa.com. That's ADECCOUSA.com. And the various positions that are available can be found on SETA's job search website, which is sacramentoworks.org. That's SACRAMENTO works.org. We'll also post this information on our Facebook page at All Things Employment as well.
And coming up also is our point counterpoint. This is where we take an issue of the day and we discuss it, debate it, but never argue.
Right. We don't ever argue.
No, we don't. And so we're going to be discussing that in our next half hour. And I believe you have a top 5, do you not?
I do have a top 5 because I'm a good team member and I did as I said I was going to do. I've prepared a top 5 all about the job search today.
I can't wait to hear it. I know you can't wait to hear it. So stay with us in 5 minutes and we will return. This is again All Things Employment on OneTalkNetwork.com.